In this video, we'll talk about white balance and how the camera determines how to render colors accurately relative to a neutral source.
So just a little bit about white balancing cameras. As we know, we have to white balance cameras, or they might be set to do it automatically. But what happens when you white balance is that you tell the camera that the light you're using as the primary color reference has an average midpoint color temperature of a certain frequency. So overall, the source is 3200 or 5600 or whatever. Once you assign the center of the frequency band to the camera, it renders all of the colors relative to that reference point. It's kind of analogous to how you meter and set the exposure for a camera. When you're doing that, you meter the average brightness, which is what a light meter reads as 18% gray or middle gray. And you assign the exposure settings of the camera to that middle gray, the ISO, the f-stop, the shutter speed. You assign that to middle gray. And then anything brighter than that renders bright, and anything darker than that renders dark. Everything's relative to that center point. So with white balance, you're giving it a center point that is frequency or color. That's your reference. So you balance on what's going to be the normal color in the scene. So you want to use something with no chroma, no saturation, like a white card or a gray card. And then the camera takes the red, green, and blue levels and that it's generating from its sensor. And regardless of what frequencies are coming at it from the light source, it equalizes those. So when you put up a white card, it puts out the same amount of red, green, blue. It ups and downs those levels until they're equal and your white card looks white. And then anything bluer than that light source on average looks blue, anything warmer looks warm. And every color looks the way it's supposed to, unless you're going for some kind of a tint look. And the thing is, your brain and your eyes, of course, do this subconsciously, nearly instantaneously. Your brain just walks in and adapts and knows what white is. And what's interesting is that there are optical illusions that purposely fool you into misinterpreting colors. And if you look at those, sometimes it helps you understand a little bit about how color rendition works.
Some of you might remember the dress that was all over the internet years ago. If you to jog your memory, or if you don't know, somebody put up a picture of a dress and half the people said it was blue and black and half the people said it was gold and white. And the way I've presented it here might skew the way you see it right now. But some factors that affected the way you saw this, white balance was a huge factor and exposure was a factor. And not just the white balance and exposure of the photo, which were big factors, but the assumed white balance and exposure in your mind. So what your brain was doing, what your brain was assuming that your eyes were seeing. So your psychological white balance and exposure were affecting how you interpreted what you were seing, right? So if we go into Lightroom, to me, this looks a little gold and white right now, and that might just be part of how I have this set at the moment. But if I take the white balance tool here in Lightroom, and I white balance on the black section, all of a sudden, it looks a lot bluer. And if I turn the exposure down a little bit too, that helps the effect. And you really you understand, hey, this is how somebody brought the blacks down a little bit. Well, I can understand how somebody would think this was blue and black. That's exactly what it looks like, probably to everybody with this kind of a setting. Well, what's happening psychologically when you look at the picture as it was taken is, if your brain is adjusted for warm light, say you're outside on a sunny day and there's a lot of warm light, then your eyes are adjusted for warm light. If you assumed that this dress was in a shady area with blue light on it, then you would assume that the areas that you see blue here were blue, and you would see them as blue because relative to the warm sort of white balance of your eyes, they are blue. So in other words, when I started out, it was sort of white balance in between. When I clicked on the black section, what I did was I said this warm area is white. Therefore, that lighter area is going to, relative to that lighter area is going to be really blue. And so now all of a sudden the thing looks blue because relative to the overall white balance, or relative to what your eyes are used to, it looks blue. Now I go the other direction. If I were to take the white balance eyedropper and click on, well, first of all, let me reset it back to where we started. Now if I take the white balance eyedropper and click on the light part of the dress, and I say that's going to be white, well, now you're going to start to see how the gold and white show up. And I'm going to brighten it a little bit up, you know, and then I'm just going to adjust the contrast. That probably to everybody looks white and gold. So what changed there? We assumed that what might have been in shadow was the correct color. So we took that area that was lighter on the dress and said that's white. Well, relative to that, the darker areas are gold, because instead of having a blue tint, now we're making that white. So when you skew that blue over to white, that skews everything into the warm side. So it takes the dark areas and makes them warmer or gold. So if my eyes are adjusted for a blue light, if I'm in a shady blue area, and I think that that dress is in a sunny area, then I'm going to think that that white is white, and relative to how my eyes are set, it's going to look white, and the black part's going to look gold. That might be a little hard to grasp, but I'm going to take the iPad and walk outside. So I'm outside. It only takes me a second. I'll look at this. You know, initially I'm still, because I'm predisposed to see it blue, it still looks blue, but it really doesn't take long before I can start to believe that it's white and gold. And really, I just stare at it for a minute and I can see it. I can absolutely see it white. And actually, after a few seconds, to me, it's white and gold. I don't know if that's going to work for everybody, but I bet it does, you know. Assuming you're looking at the original picture that's kind of neutral to begin with. So let's go inside. So inside with tungsten lights, I hold that up and it immediately, to my eye, looks much bluer. The blue-black, which is my default for this thing anyway, jumps right back out at me. So, you know, clearly white balance is a big part of this, and my eyes being adjusted to a warm light here is affecting my perception of that. Click on the next video to continue. New videos drop every couple of days. If you like what you see, like and follow us on our social media channels. And everything is downloadable for free on our website, rucciproductions.com.